The Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. This just in, Metro Manila will be under general community quarantine starting September 8. This was confirmed by para spokesperson Harry Roque. Stay tuned here on One News for more details on this developing story. Meanwhile, Philippine Airlines has announced to the public over the weekend that it has officially gone bankrupt. But today, the company is clearing the air as passengers are left confused about its implications. To give us more details, we have Gerard de la Peña now joining us live from the NAIA Terminal 2. Gerard, good afternoon. What does this bankruptcy mean for the company and for its passengers?
Charles, despite the announcement of bankruptcy, the Philippine Airlines said that it is not closing down and that measures are in place to restore the flag carrier. It also gave an assurance to the public that it's still business as usual at the Philippine Airlines. In a virtual briefing today, PAL officials made some clarifications in their bankruptcy announcement. The company said it voluntarily applied for pre-arranged restructuring under the Chapter 11 process at the South District of New York. This as the airlines negotiates with its lessors and creditors in hopes of reducing its balance sheet by $2 billion. PAL also targets to infuse $505 million in long-term equity and debt financing from the Tan family, which owns the majority of PAL, as well as $150 million of additional debt from new investors. The flag carrier will also reduce its fleet by 25% to just 70 aircraft composed of turbopropellers, Airbuses, and big Boeing 777s. PAL says it will also do a similar filing in the country under the Financial Insolvency and Rehabilitation Act of 2010. The airline said that it should be done with the restructuring before the end of the year. It has been months since the news of PAL's filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy surfaced, but company officials said the actual filing was only done recently as it had to iron out negotiations with its creditors. Similar negotiations were also done with aircraft manufacturers. PAL had to cancel some of its orders of new planes. The airline said it was severely affected by the low passenger demand owing to flight restrictions in the middle of a global pandemic. At this time, PAL is only seeing 21% of its pre-pandemic flights. Officials said they somehow survived because of repatriation flights to ferry stranded Filipinos abroad, as well as in-flying sweeper flights to transport locally stranded individuals. It also remained liquid by transporting vaccines, medical supplies, and other cargo. While a direct credit line from the government could be a great help, the airline said that aside from the flights paid for by the government, they also received aid in the form of waived fees at the airports. PAL management also said that it has finished its retrenchment program, but with the assumption that the pandemic will not worsen. PAL sees demand to go back to pre-pandemic levels by the latter part of the decade. Charles, for now, the Philippine Airlines said that it will focus on being a full-service airline, servicing markets where it is traditionally a dominant player, particularly the North America and Middle Eastern market. It said that it will still strengthen its regional network as well as domestic operations, and that for now, flight schedules will be followed and that miles can still be redeemed. Charles.
Thanks for those updates. That was Gerard de la Peña reporting live from NAIA. The Philippine Air Force has yet to identify the aircraft that flew towards the country's airspace last week. In an interview with Radyo 5, PAF spokesperson Maynard Mariano said the aircraft passengers did not respond to radio calls after its unscheduled entry. Mariano said that upon dispatch of Philippine jets, the unknown aircraft changed direction and sped away from the country's airspace. Although the official insisted that the presence of an unidentified aircraft near the country does not automatically mean that it's a threat.
Hindi po natin siyang ituturing threat. Unknown po siya, ang classification niya, kaya gusto po nating malaman kung ano po talaga siya. Kasi po marami pong mga instances, baka naman naligaw lang, o nagkaroon po ng problema, nagkaroon po ng emergency yung eroplano, nawalan siya ng communication, naligaw siya sa kanyang navigation, at baka naman nasa emergency siya, na pwede nating tulungan yung eroplano na to kung sino man ito o kung saan man ito galing.
Banks are assuring customers that the sector is far from collapsing amid the pandemic. This comes as some businesses are hesitant to apply for loans while others are unable to pay off existing ones. Shaila Francisco with the rest of the story.
Sales of this foam company dropped by 40 to 70% this pandemic as ongoing lockdowns continue to delay deliveries. This prompted the company's owner, Maria, to negotiate with the bank to restructure the business's loans and extend payment terms. Maria wants their sales to go to their employees first because they need it the most.
Tao namin number one kasi like this time, siyempre ang daing nila yung pang day-to-day nila survival, kain lang. Maintenance namin sa warehouse, maintenance lahat na. Pag may excess, kaya kung may excess, sa loan na rin.
Also heavily affected by the COVID-19 pandemic are tourism companies. The Tourism Congress of the Philippines says that some companies are unable to pay existing loans as they remain closed for over a year already. The group of exporters and businesses adds that their cash reserves are running low as the pandemic rages on. Some companies are now hesitant to apply for bank loans.
Pagka wala silang pag-asa na maibalik yung negosyo nila, they're not also accessing bank loan because sayang lang mapapautang sila sa bangko and then but they have no source of income. Those small ones medyo gipit sila when there's the cash flow is being hindered by any of this slowdown or quarantine. It does affect financial position.
As of July, bank lending dipped to 0.7% year-on-year, down for the 8th consecutive month. In an interview with the Chiefs, economist Andrew Masigan warns that the banking sector may not survive if lockdowns continue.
Worst case scenario, the collapse of the banking system because you have a pile of non-performing debt. Businesses can't pay, businesses are belly up, lockdowns cannot go on indefinitely.
But the central bank is confident that this will not happen anytime soon.
That's a doomsday scenario, and we're very far from that because we're doing well on the vaccination front, and that I think the future lockdowns will be granular and targeted, and there will be no more regional or area big or nationwide lockdowns. Okay, so as I said, we're now on our way to recovery, although it's still fragile.
The Bankers Association of the Philippines has assured the public that the sector remains resilient despite challenges. In a statement, the group says non-performing loans of banks will not have an adverse impact at this time since it has not yet reached double digits. Banks are also allowed to dispose non-performing loans to asset managers through the FIST Act. They will also continue to offer financial relief options to their clients in order to pay off obligations, which in return will also help banks. Shaila Francisco, VR1 News.
With the Delta variant causing the bulk of the world's coronavirus infections, scientists have detected a new variant that may have the ability to evade vaccines. But one American health expert believes that this new variant is not yet an immediate threat. Let's listen in.
Well, yes, we certainly are aware of the Mu variant. We're keeping a very close eye on it. It is really seen here, but it is not at all even close to being dominant. As you know, the Delta is more than 99% dominant. Even though it is not, in essence, taken hold to any extent here, we always pay attention to, at all times, variants. This variant has a constellation of mutations that suggest that it would evade certain antibodies, not only monoclonal antibodies, but vaccine and convalescent serum-induced antibodies. But there isn't a lot of clinical data to suggest that. It is mostly laboratory in vitro data. Not to downplay it, we take it very seriously. But remember, even when you have variants that do diminish somewhat the efficacy of the vaccines still are quite effective against variants of that type. Bottom line, we're paying attention to it. We take everything like that seriously, but we don't consider it an immediate threat right now.
Tropical depression Julina slightly intensifies as it moves westward over the Philippine Sea. Because of this, Sorsogon, the Samar provinces, the Dinagat Islands, Siargao, and the Bukas Grande Islands are currently under tropical cyclone wind signal number 1. TD Julina was last spotted at 205 kilometers east-southwest of Giwan, eastern Samar, and it is expected to intensify into a tropical storm on Wednesday. TD Julina will continue to move generally northwestward, parallel to the east coast of the country, and Pagasa says it may make landfall over northern Luzon by Thursday before exiting the PAR on Friday. Here's a quick look at some of today's headlines. The country logged over 20,000 new COVID-19 cases for 3 straight days. Philippine Airlines files for bankruptcy protection in the United States. And Kobe Paras is the latest Filipino player to join Japan's B-League. And those are the top stories at this hour. Join us again later at 2 p.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Just register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime and anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.